In this video we're going to be talking about how I did the Stormbreaker paint job. Enjoy! Hello friends, hello YouTube, how are you guys doing? Rainbow here with another Nerf mod tutorial video, and today it's about painting, especially the Stormbreaker paint job. Quite a while ago, one of my followers on Instagram and YouTube reached out to me asking if I could do a tutorial on how I did the Stormbreaker paint job. And I was really thinking of how I could do this because I didn't record any videos of how I did the paint job, and I'm not painting it again, but I thought I'm going to talk you through the process of how this is done with the step-by-step pictures. And I really hope that'll answer most of the questions around this, because at the end of the day, this is not as hard as it might seem, given that you know how to use an airbrush. It's not going to be an airbrush tutorial. There's a ton of different videos on YouTube that are fantastic, and I have also just learned airbrushing when I did this paint job, so I'm not far ahead in that regard. So off we go. Doing the whole new setup again, which is what I'm going to swap over here for a second. So for those of you who don't know, this is the Stormbreaker. The blaster, a Strayven integration that I built for my friend Nick in England at the beginning of the year, or first quarter. And yeah, so this was my first proper airbrush paint job, and I really like it. And a lot of people ask me, like, how did you do this? This is amazing, and thanks to everyone who loves that. So with this being my first ever airbrush paint job, I didn't really have any clue what I was doing. I kind of looked at a bunch of tutorials on how to use an airbrush, but I still had no idea how to airbrush in the first place. So I picked this paint job because you will see in a second that it is not as complicated to execute as some of you might think. And yeah, so I'm going to talk you through the steps that I did so that you can do something similar. And if you do, and if this tutorial is helpful for you, make sure to let me know. Send me a link to your work, and I'll be really intrigued to see this. So as I said, this is the Stormbreaker build, and the paint job is done in, I believe it was 5 stages in total, if you consider the whole airbrush thing being one stage. And it has, I think, 6 different airbrushed colors in there. And so, alright, let's go. Start from the beginning. I'm going to switch it to a different screen. So you're going to see this. Brilliant. So the very first is, like with all of my paint jobs and everything that I do, I'm going to base coat them with a primer. I'm using a Spava primer, which is a German. Well, it's available here in Germany where I live. I can't tell you what's the best primer to use. You got to figure this out by trying different primers and color combinations. But what I do is, like, I prime it. That's normally dark gray, and then I hit it with at least one complete coat of automotive silver. And normally I do a wet on wet paint with the automotive silver, but in this case I wanted parts of the silver to shine through. So what I did is I did 2 coats of automotive silver. They were wet and wet, so kind of treating like the first coat at the base and the second as a color coat if you want. If you've watched my video on the talk I did at FoamFestLive, you know what I mean when I say these different layers. But yeah, so I started with the silver, and I did let it dry completely. And then came probably the longest in terms of work for a single step, which was masking the lightning. So as you can see here, I did mask. Oh, I can zoom in and out. This is fantastic. I did mask all the lightning. I started in the back where it's just one line. I knew that I wanted to have the bottom in purple, the top in blue, and I wanted to have a lightning running through and then kind of create the effect of the blaster being darker further away from the lightning. So the lightning really is kind of like a light source on the blaster. So I knew I wanted to have it from the back here being a straight separation and then turning into this lightning in the front. So literally what I did is I cut bits of masking tape, put them down, and as you can see here, just random bits, just straight cuts, okay, and then just random bits, and angled them randomly. And went smaller as I go. So like this was the main branch, if you want, of the lightning going all the way through to about front here, and everything that came, you know, away from that branch kind of went thinner. And so I literally sat down with the scissors and some masking tape, and I cut off little bits, or I put down some masking tape on my cutting board, and then I cut pieces of tape from there, and that's how I masked that. And in total, like these bits that you see here is a nameplate and a number plate. But in total, this took me 4 to 5 hours, at least 4. I think it's 4.5 hours, roughly around there, just masking this, cutting and masking, and doing that. And that was the biggest sort of preparation work that needs to be done, because I know that when I peel off this tape afterwards, everywhere will be silver. So let's go to the first color. As you can see here, I have applied all the blues already, and remember how I said that I had this one main branch for the lightning? I knew that everything that's over that and top, or like, you know, towards the top of the blaster, it's going to be blue, and everything below that towards the bottom of the blaster was going to be purple, magenta, pink. So I did the blue side first, and that was actually relatively simple. So I did start with the light blue that's just over here, so like this tone of blue, like the very light blue. I loaded my airbrush with that, and then I kind of pointed the airbrush, sort of like holding the blaster, and point the airbrush towards the blue side so it wouldn't all flow onto the other side as well. You can see here that I have some blues on the other side as well, but as I said, airbrush noob, not knowing what I'm doing. And so I started with some light blues till about what, 2 centimeters. So I'll pick this till about 2 centimeters away, that kind of sort of line. Done that, cool. And then I started mixing a little bit of that darker blue into the light blue that's already in the airbrush. And yes, I know some people say you shouldn't mix airbrush you shouldn't mix your colors inside the airbrush. But I was being lazy, and I felt this was a smoother transition, and so this is what I did. So yeah, I'm not saying it's best practice, absolutely not, but it does work. So then I got this second tone of blue, which is kind of this one right there, and I did the same thing. I kind of did 2 centimeters of that second blue, and yeah, and then I started to do a little bit of a fade, so like just going over the light blue. I don't know if you can see that. The light blue is actually till here, and then the dark blue is kind of just fading over the top here. And that was the second layer. And then I actually cleaned the airbrush completely and put in the dark blue and did all the rest with the dark blue. And same thing, faded into the semi-dark mixed blue. And that's how I got this fade. One thing I did afterwards is, because like, see these bigger branches, if you want to call them branches right there, I did go around those a little bit more with the light blue, just as a last sort of step, to create more of a reflective sort of lightning sort of theme. Don't know if that makes sense, I hope it does. Alright, let's go to the next colors. So for the purple and magenta part, I did not actually mask off anything else. I relied on my, well, I was confident enough, let's say, put it that way, I was confident enough to not screw it up, and I didn't mask off the blue parts. I just sort of airbrushed along the line here and away from the blue, making sure that this, or hoping that it works, and it did. So I didn't need to go in and correct much of the blue. So same thing, coming in here with the magenta kind of till about there, 2 centimeters down, say about here, and then started mixing the purple, the dark purple, into the magenta, and then doing another 2 centimeters and a little bit of fade, and then coming back with the very dark purple, this is the one down here, going in around here. And here, because it's the grip, and the grip also had some lightning, I found that I couldn't just do it like dark purple down here, so I did the dark purple first, and then came over that with some magenta again, because there's like a big lightning running through here as well, so it needs a bit of more reflection of the light. And yeah, so that's basically that. And then I peeled the tape off, and there you go. And now because I cut the tape, you can really see like how like this is straight cut tape. And there's no fine sort of cuts and lines. It was really just straight cut tape. This is why the ends sort of look all like that. Yes, you could do way more of a detailed job when you cut the masking tape, when you put down the masking tape, but then I'm going to say that the masking of this already took long. This is going to take quite forever, but it'll look a lot cleaner. It'll probably look a lot nicer than this one. I'm still very happy with how this turned out, but that's essentially how I did it. So, right, one more thing that you can really see in this picture, as I was saying earlier, I didn't have it on the other picture. I did then, after doing the magenta pink along the edges of the lightning, I did clean the airbrush again and did some light blues, or the dark blues as well, so it had more reflective, you know, lightning-esque effect up there, and it wasn't just a straight blue fade into there, what the original plan actually was. But yeah, I did change that, and you can see here coming around this lightning before I obviously peeled off that tape, but it's not on that picture. So right here, see, it's not there. And in the next picture you can actually see that I did that afterwards. So that's one step that I didn't didn't document well. I'm sorry about that, but essentially it's the same color, just sort of coming over that. And so the last thing I did for this blaster, the finished paint job, was I just went ahead and added some black details, because black on the blaster will give some sort of contrast to it, and I quite like that. So as you can see here, hand painted the stock. This part of the stock is just a section that, you know, really easily painted black because you got all the lines here and it just looks like it fits. Got the letters and the number in black, and also the little triangle knobs, whatever they are, from the Raven and the stripe here, just to get some contrast. And I knew that all the other parts would be orange, as you saw earlier. There we go, which adds another level of contrast to the paint job. I knew that I didn't want to paint any of these, and yep, that's it. There's another decal here, adding a little bit more contrast to the paint job. So I hope you were able to follow and understand the steps of this paint job. And yes, it is done with an airbrush. You could probably do it with a wash as well, but in my experience, when you work with washes, working with masking tape is not the best of an idea, because the tape has to be down really tight for the wash or the water not to go underneath it. If you want to have a clean, crisp line like this, the airbrush is the better choice. And yeah, so that is a paint job that I wouldn't do without an airbrush. Not anymore. I've done similar things in the past, but now that I have an airbrush, yeah. So again, guys, I really hope this was helpful to you. I really hope this answered the question on how I did this paint job, and hopefully it inspired some of you to try this as well. So learning how to airbrush is not that hard. I still say I have tons of things to learn about an airbrush, but it's just about getting one and starting to do it. And in all honesty, any airbrush is better than no airbrush. Something I heard so many times and I didn't believe until I had an airbrush. I still have this cheap airbrush that I'm using, and you know, it's capable of producing the results, and it's fun to use. So watch a couple of tutorials on how to do, like the Miniature Miniac is a really good source to start with. Like, even though he's a little bit crazy and metal for my taste, he does brilliant job at explaining what's important about airbrushing. So really like his channel for, you know, the airbrush input. So go check it out, leave the link in the description. Thanks very much for watching, guys. As always, I really appreciate it if you go check out the videos on screen now. Check out my social media, my Instagram, Facebook, and all this sort of jazz, as well as my Patreon if you want. Leave a comment and a like, and if you have any other things that you want to have a tutorial on, let me know, and I'll see if I can get to it. Stay healthy, stay safe, and love and sunshine.